New Omnitrix, who dis? We're back for number 5, and I promise it absolutely definitely has not been 10 whole months since I posted one of these. Nope, totally has not. Anyway, we open on a cliche bad guy delayed light-up of 3 really mean-looking guys. Aliens, or robots, maybe both? Anyway, Vilgax seems to be auditioning hitmen. He releases some drones, and the one called 6-6 does some sick flippy-doos and drops bombs. The one called Crab, with a K, does some serious clamping. The one that's still in a mask, who I will name later when he is demasked, rolls up on his hoverboard and then, reflects the beam of energy back at the drone. Where have I seen that before? Vilgax, being an indecisive little child, can't decide, so he just decides to hire all 3. That's probably not the smartest move, but who knows, maybe it'll work out for him. He tells them their goal is to retrieve the Omnitrix, but if he believes for 1 second they're not going to have to maim and or murder Ben to get the watch, then he's sorely mistaken. I mean, Ben doesn't know the command function override yet. He can't take the thing off. They're going to have to chop his arm off at the very least. Theme song! All new powers, he's on the case, fighting off evil from Earth or space. Anyway, back on the Earth. Grandpa Max puts the finishing touches on an obstacle course and gives Ben the okay. Ben smacks his watch and turns into Diamond Head, and then Grandpa gives him some annoyingly solid advice of use your head instead of your muscles. Diamond Head basically says, yeah, yada yada yada, and charges headfirst into the course. At first, he's doing really, really well, shooting tiny diamonds at all the stuff incoming at him. After Grandpa tells him to focus, he seems to lose focus, and he gets hit right in the face by a rogue tire. He accidentallys a bunch of diamonds at Grandpa, Gwen, and the Rust Bucket. Seemingly nothing is damaged except for, Gwen's lotion, but seemingly. Sometime later, they're on the road, and Gwen is giving Ben crap for almost shish kebabbing her, and he gives an apology that sounds like he didn't think he needed to give one. God, was I that bad at 10 years old? Mom? Yes, can confirm. I was that bad at 10 years old. Max tells Ben he needs to start taking the Omnitrix more seriously and thinking out his plans before he executes them, and Ben just basically says, sure, I'm good enough already. Gwen vocalizes her wish to see Ben get his butt whooped, and his response could not be more sarcastic. Now I kind of want to see it too. Anyway, the Rust Bucket starts chugging along for some reason, Ben, and Grandpa has to pull over to see what's going on. The hunters arrive at the obstacle course, since that's the last place that the Omnitrix was activated, and they all begin squabbling over the evidence like little children. They head off, but not before exploding the obstacle course for some reason. Unnecessary. Team Tennyson finds themselves in a ghost town. Grandpa gets out to examine the engine of the Rust Bucket, and turns out Diamond Head had punctured the fuel line. Idiot. Ben offers to take care of the problem himself, but Grandpa gives a grandpa burn and basically says, you've done enough, I'll handle it. Ben brushes it off and just goes off to explore, but Grandpa doesn't think that's a great idea, so he sends Gwen off after him. Ben ducks into a warehouse, thinking to mess with Gwen. He activates the Omnitrix, idiotically drawing the hunters to their location. Gwen wanders into the warehouse looking for Ben, and gets a sudden chill from what turns out to be Ghost Freak. She's had enough of his crap at this point and clearly isn't scared, but she is scared when Crab bursts up through the floor. Ghost Freak gets Gwen out of the way, and then Crab starts demanding the Omnitrix. By the way, it's kind of weird. Ben still doesn't know it's called that. Anyway, Gwen pieces that together, because, obviously he's after the watch. Duh. Ghost Freak and Crab exchange some mediocre banter, and then Ghost Freak vanishes like an a-hole, leaving Gwen all exposed. Ghost Freak tries to sneak up on Crab, but Crab can not only see him, but he squirts him with a goo that makes him tangible again. Crab punches a very confused Ghost Freak across the room and then follows up with a vicious backhand. Gwen helps him up and proves that she's by far the more mature one by taking back her very snarky comment from earlier. I still think she was right, though. Crab blasts Ghost Freak with some sort of beam, but then Gwen notices that he's standing on a hydraulic lift, so she points it out, Ghost Freak pulls the lever, and Crab gets crushed. The Omnitrix times out, and Ben and Gwen flee. They go to inform Grandpa of what happened, and Gwen points out that it wanted the watch and even knew that it was called the Omnitrix. Ben is all for staying and beating on Crab some more, but Grandpa, saying that the repairs are done, is ready to get back on the road. Ben, bragging about how he beat Crab, is suddenly startled by 6-6 sawing through the roof of the rust bucket. Grandpa slams on the brakes, flings 6-6 over the front of the RV, and then runs his ass over with this fug-smucking grin on his face. This does seem to be a goof, however, because they sputter to a stop and discover that the tires are now full of spikes. 6-6 stands up unhurt, Team Tennyson does a group gasp, and then they head off towards an abandoned mine for some reason. Next thing we see is Crab popping into the mine. He chases Team Tennyson, and Ben does what any reasonable person would do and tries to argue with the Omnitrix. No luck. They find themselves at the edge of a mine shaft, and Grandpa makes another questionable, albeit badass decision. He gathers the kids into a minecart and heads over the open shaft towards another tunnel. Crab aims to drop their cart into the abyss, but 6-6 interferes and chases after them. Ben continues annoying the Omnitrix until it gives in and transforms him into Diamond Head. He tackles 6-6 down the mine shaft. 6-6 can still fly, however, so they both just end up back on the edge of the pit. Grandpa tries to get Diamond Head back in the cart, but he wants to stay behind and finish the fight. At this point, however, Crab joins the fight, and 2-on-1 is a little too much for Diamond Head to handle. While Diamond Head is laying on the ground, totally incensed, Crab and 6-6 begin to argue over the bounty. That's when the Masked Hunter shows up and drops bombs. Well, bomb. Smoke bomb, to be exact, and it causes 6-6 and Crab to pass out. The Masked Hunter snags Diamond Head and hoverboards down a tunnel. They arrive back at the ghost town where the Masked Hunter tosses Diamond Head aside and then starts monologuing about how much he knows about the Omnitrix and how it's a bummer it ended up with some kid. Diamond Head tries and fails a sneak attack and is rewarded with a bitch slap for his effort. Masked Guy... Tetrax. His name is Tetrax. I'm tired of saying Masked Guy. He's gonna demask in a second. Tetrax then goes on about how Ben only chooses aliens based on their strength, and he's just basically rehashing what Grandpa's been telling him all day. Diamond Head tries to defend himself, but he takes a beating as Tetrax berates him for how bad he failed down in the mine. He then goes on to say that the Omnitrix is the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, which I guess it is, but that's not why it was made. Why does nobody get that? Tetrax explains that it's his job to retrieve the watch, and that since it's attached to Ben, he has to come with him. Diamond Head takes exception to this and tries to tackle him again. Tetrax tosses him aside easily and laughs at him for not knowing the strengths and weaknesses of a Petrosapien. Ben wonders what makes him such an expert. Tetrax finally demasks and, surprise! He's a Petrosapien! Who could have seen this coming? Tetrax berates him some more, and then the Omnitrix proves his point even further by timing out and making Ben look very small in comparison. Tetrax picks Ben up by the scruff of his neck like a kitten, and then tries to board his board, but it's missing. Crab scuttles out looking all smug, holding his board, and then 6-6 walks out. I assume he looks smug too, but it's so hard to read that guy, and he's holding Gwen and Grandpa captive. They reveal that they've teamed up to split the reward. I don't think Vilgax is going to go for that, but whatever, they're going to fail regardless. There's a solid 30 seconds of everyone just staring each other down, and then Crab starts firing at Tetrax and Ben. Tetrax protects Ben with the utmost contempt, and then we immediately see cracks forming in Crab and 6-6's partnership. Ben demands that they go back and save his family, but Tetrax is all for just getting the hell out of there with the Omnitrix. Ben gives a decent attempt at a hero speech, but Tetrax fires back with cold logic and dashes out to grab his board. Idiot! Tetrax Diamond blasts 6-6, causing him to drop Gwen and Grandpa. Then he does a sick flip over Crab and takes his board back. Tetrax gains some altitude on his board, then hops off and lands on 6-6, making a crater in the ground, and then he proceeds to beat the crap out of him. Crab tries to interfere, but he gets the smackdown as well. Ben looks on desperately, and then he gets a gift from the screenwriter as the Omnitrix signals full charge. Ben says hero time, and then hilariously runs away. Crab takes the bait and chases after him. Idiot. Ben almost chooses forearms, but Grandpa's Forced Ghost reminds him to use his head, and he chooses gray matter instead and heads for the rafters. Crab is smashing things below. Gray matter hops down onto him, crawls inside, and starts removing wires and things. He takes out some nerve clusters, and suddenly Crab violently loses control of his body. After some rather horrible screaming and spluttering, he falls down with a rather definitive thunk. 6-6 gives Tetrax a very powerful rocket-powered suplex, and then stands up like nothing happened, and notices wee little gray matter. Grandpa jumps on 6-6 to try and stop him from spiking gray matter, but he gets flipped on his ass, and 6-6 starts up a saw. Gray matter jumps on 6-6 and removes some of his nerve clusters, causing his jetpack to go haywire. He does some crazy aerial acrobatics and ends up face planted right next to Crab. And then in classic cartoon fashion, the water tower falls down and crushes them both. Tetrax whips out a capture prism from World of Final Fantasy and captures both 6-6 and Crab. After seeing Ben in action, Tetrax seems to have changed his mind. He tells Ben the Omnitrix is in good hands, and even gives him his hoverboard. Badass. Tetrax then remasks and vanishes in a burst of light? Huh? Ben is bragging about how cool his stuff is, and Gwen decides to give him a gift of her own. She gets revenge for the lotion incident earlier. Up in the space, the corpse formerly known as Vilgax realizes that he's been betrayed, and he whines about it. And roll credits! This one is a lot of fun. Great episode. I'd give it Tennyson out of 11. I also like the fact that we're seeing one of Ben's aliens out in the wild. Cool stuff. It's fun to know something about them before you meet them. Anyway, sorry for the delay on this one. Life happens. Stick around, do the things, and I'll catch you next time.